Before he became Hollywood's highest paid actor, before he was the people's champion, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was a young man staring at shattered dreams and an uncertain future. From devastating injuries to crushing failures, his journey could have ended long before the world ever knew his name. But what if I told you that The Rock's career almost ended before it truly began? This is the untold story of how reality nearly broke him and how he fought back. Dwayne Douglas Johnson was born into wrestling royalty in May 1972, the son of Rocky Johnson and grandson of Peter Maivia. Wrestling was in his blood, but it wasn't his first dream. From the moment he set foot on a football field, young Dwayne imagined a future under the bright lights of the NFL. In high school, he was a standout athlete, strong, fast, and determined. At the University of Miami, he earned a coveted scholarship and quickly became a defensive powerhouse for the Hurricanes. For Johnson, this was destiny. It wasn't just about playing a game. It was about securing a future, lifting his family, and proving to himself that he was more than just the son of wrestlers. But fate had other plans. During his college years, injuries began to haunt him. A shoulder tear sidelined him during his most crucial seasons. While his teammates celebrated victories, Dwayne sat on the sidelines, nursing wounds that never fully healed. For a young man who tied his identity to the sport, it was devastating. And just when he thought things couldn't get worse, reality struck with a final blow. He went undrafted in the NFL. Still unwilling to give up, Johnson accepted a chance with the Calgary Stampeders in the Canadian Football League. At first, it felt like a second shot at glory. He poured himself into training, fighting for every minute on the field. But the CFL was unforgiving. Within months, he was cut from the team. No paycheck, no spotlight, and no future in professional football. He was only 23 years old and already felt like a failure. Can you imagine what it's like to dedicate your life to a dream, only to have it ripped away before you even get started? That's where Dwayne Johnson found himself. With no money, no career, and no clear direction, he returned home to his parents in Tampa. He had just $7 in his pocket. $7, that's all. No car, no house, no fame. Just the crushing weight of disappointment. Depression followed. Johnson admitted years later that during those dark days, he felt broken. He had let his family down. He had let himself down. The world saw him as a towering athlete, but inside he was lost. What would you do if everything you worked for disappeared in an instant? Would you fight for something new or give up entirely? It was during this time of despair that his father, Rocky Johnson, stepped in. Rocky knew the pain of rejection, the grind of surviving in a business that chewed people up. He told Dwayne something simple: "Son, maybe football wasn't your destiny, maybe wrestling is." At first, Dwayne resisted. Wrestling was his family's legacy, but he didn't want to be seen as a man living in the shadow of others. Yet with nothing left to lose, he stepped into the training ring. The sessions were brutal. His father pushed him to the edge. Every slam, every fall reminded him of his failures. But slowly, with sweat and determination, Johnson began to build something new. By 1996, he was ready to debut in the WWF under the name Rocky Maivia. At first, he was marketed as the smiling blue-chip babyface, the perfect good guy. The crowds, however, rejected him. "Die, Rocky, die," they chanted. For a man already battling self-doubt, this rejection cut deep. Once again, it seemed reality was closing in. Was this going to be another failed chapter in his life? But what no one realized then was that The Rock was being forged in fire. Every failure, every injury, every moment of humiliation was preparing him for something greater. The young man who once thought his life ended with football was about to discover that destiny had only just begun. The boos echoed louder than the cheers. As Rocky Maivia, Dwayne Johnson had stepped into the WWF with a smile on his face and lineage in his bloodline. He was the chosen one, the third-generation star destined to carry the torch. But the crowd saw through the corporate script. They didn't want a cookie-cutter hero, they wanted authenticity. Night after night, arenas rang with jeers, "Die, Rocky, die." For a young man who had already endured shattered dreams in football, this was a brutal déjà vu. Was failure going to define him again? Instead of quitting, Johnson made a choice that would change not just his career, but the course of wrestling history. He leaned into the hate, embraced the anger, and reimagined himself, not as Rocky Maivia, but as The Rock. Gone was the smiling rookie. In his place stood a brash, arrogant, sharp-tongued villain who didn't beg for cheers. He demanded respect. With eyebrow raised and microphone in hand, The Rock's charisma exploded. Suddenly, the crowd that once rejected him couldn't get enough, but transformation wasn't instant. Behind the scenes, Johnson fought a battle few fans knew about. He was constantly on edge, terrified that his second chance might crumble like the first. The locker room was ruthless, competition stiff. Legends like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker loomed large. Johnson knew he had to prove himself, not just with words, but with performance. Every match became a test, every promo a chance to silence the doubters. His breakthrough came in 1998, when he captured the WWF Championship. It was more than a title, it was validation. He wasn't just Rocky Johnson's son. He wasn't just a failed football player. He was The Rock, the youngest world champion at that time, and the embodiment of resilience. Fans who once hated him now electrified arenas with chants of Rocky, Rocky, Rocky. The transformation was complete, but fame came at a price. The Rock was expected to be everywhere, on the road, in the ring, on the mic, day after day, year after year. The grind was punishing, the pressure relentless. Injuries piled up and exhaustion set in. More than once, Johnson questioned if his body and mind could keep pace. Could he survive the business long enough to build a legacy, or would burn out destroy him before he reached the top? It was in this crucible that Johnson discovered a new weapon of adaptability. He didn't just wrestle, he entertained. His promos became legendary, filled with catchphrases that turned into cultural phenomena. "If you smell what The Rock is cooking," wasn't just a line, it was a declaration that he had arrived. And with every eyebrow raise, every electrifying match, The Rock pulled himself further from the shadows of failure. Still, reality threatened again. By the early 2000s, the call of Hollywood grew louder. Many wrestlers had tried to cross over into acting, and most had failed. Could The Rock succeed, or was he about to face another painful ending? Johnson took the leap, starring first in The Mummy Returns and then headlining The Scorpion King. Against the odds, both films were box office hits. What began as a gamble quickly turned into a new empire. Looking back, the road could have ended countless times on the football field, in the rejection of fans, under the weight of injury, or in the uncertainty of Hollywood. But every failure had sharpened him, every setback had built resilience. Dwayne Johnson was no longer the man with $7 in his pocket. He was The Rock, world champion, global superstar, and the ultimate survivor of reality's harshest blows. And maybe that's why his story resonates with millions. Because deep down, we've all faced moments when dreams collapse, when rejection burns, and when the world tells us we're not enough. The Rock's career nearly ended before it began, but he showed that with grit, reinvention, and relentless belief, failure can become fuel for greatness. So let me ask you, when life knocks you down, will you stay on the mat, or will you rise just like The Rock?